Well, good afternoon, everyone. As you know, we're on the energy bill. Chairman Murkowski is here, and I'm going to call on her in a minute to lay out the way forward. It's open for amendment. We expect to complete the bill with bipartisan support sometime next week. Just an aside, we had a significant discussion for quite a period of time in the Republican conference today on the opioid heroin epidemic that's sweeping the country. Senator Cornyn was in a hearing this morning on that subject in Judiciary, and we're going to have him talk about that as well. But first, let me turn to Senator Murkowski.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for the fact that we are on the energy bill, first thing out of the gate here in 2016. But we didn't get here without a lot of good, hard work through the committee. What the Energy and Natural Resources Committee has been doing for the past year now has been working through a very collaborative, a very open, really a very constructive committee process through a level of oversight hearings, a level of listening sessions, reaching out to not only members on the Energy Committee, but all throughout the United States Senate for their ideas on energy. We haven't updated and reformed our energy policies since 2007. It is well past time to be doing that. So what we built through this very collaborative and very bipartisan process is a bill that moved through the committee 18-4 back in July. And again, we focused on areas where we were able to find that common ground. And we found that common ground when it comes to efficiency. And I want to give a shout out to Senator Portman. He, along with Senator Shaheen, have been working the efficiency issues for years now. Well, it's back as part of this bill. We focus on infrastructure, we focus on supply, and we focus on accountability. All areas, again, where we believe that we can advance our energy policies so that we produce more energy, Americans pay less for their energy, and we're able to move our energy around in ways that make sense, moving us towards a better energy future all around. And we do this through this measure without mandates, without increasing taxes, and without adding to the deficit. So we're going to be on this bill. We've encouraged members to bring forward their amendments. I fully anticipate that there will be an opportunity to hear from a lot of different corners. But we shouldn't be afraid of amendments. We had an opportunity last January to move energy-related amendments through. We had over 59 different amendments considered in the Energy and Natural Resources Committee in July, so we kind of know where the universe is. What we need to do now is work together to get these amendments in a process and move us forward in a way that meets the demand. We've been delayed just a couple days because of the weather, but that's nothing when you consider the delay that we have faced over the past 8 years as we have had this interim between the last time we took up an energy bill and where we are now with the Energy Policy Modernization Act. So I look forward to good debate on the floor and hopefully moving this bipartisan product through the floor of the Senate to be signed into law by the President.
As the Majority Leader said this morning, we had a hearing in the Senate Judiciary Committee on a piece of legislation called the Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act. And this is legislation led ably in the Senate by Senator Ayotte and Senator Portman because of the ongoing pandemic really occurring in their states and other parts of the country with regard to prescription drug addiction, namely the opioids that Senator McConnell talked about, and then the cheap heroin that is so often substituted for these prescription medications by people who become addicted. But once again, we've seen that our criminal justice system is not well suited to deal with people who are addicted or indeed people who are mentally ill. And that we heard about in creative, innovative programs at the local level around the country that could be put to good use to help people deal with their addiction, to help them recover their lives and get back into productive lives. And I expect that Senator Grassley will want to mark this legislation up soon. but it also raises the issue from somebody from my perspective, a concern about the supply, not just of opioids, a prescription drug medication for which a couple of 100 million prescriptions are extant for those drugs, whether they're being overprescribed, but also the heroin supply coming from Mexico. That's one of the chief products of the drug cartels that rely upon demand in the United States. Thus, they produce this heroin that comes across our borders, and what we're going to do about that.
Well, I want to congratulate Chairman Murkowski for her incredible work on this bipartisan energy bill. A big component of this is our effort to make it easier to export liquefied natural gas. Right before the end of the year, we lifted the ban on exporting crude oil. Now it's time to expedite the exportation of liquefied natural gas. We know that Europe continues to be held hostage in many ways to Russia as a form of a supplier of natural gas. We know that Russia's incursion into Ukraine had a lot to do with natural gas, and now Iran has announced as of yesterday they want to be a major exporter of natural gas, to the point where they want to be a major exporter to Europe within the next 2 years. So for the President and any of the Democrats that supported the Iranian deal, they should be supporting our efforts to expedite the exportation of liquefied natural gas from the United States. It doesn't help America or democracy if Europe is held hostage either by Russia or by Iran for their energy sources. This week, the Democrats are having their retreat in Baltimore. Joining President Obama will be Tom Steyer, who is again an enemy of American energy and American energy supplies. When the President talks about having a phone and a pen, the President ought to go to his phone, pick up his phone, call Lisa Murkowski, and say, I want to work with you on an energy bill. The last one passed in 2007. See if he calls.
Well, on the opioid issue, in an appropriations bill, the one we just passed, we're in the Education Labor HHS part of the bill. We didn't do 23 new programs the President wanted. We eliminated 18 programs, but one of our very biggest increases was a 284% increase in the efforts to fight opioid abuse, heroin addiction. That went from $32 billion to $123 billion, but this has truly reached epidemic proportions. 4 times as many deaths from opioid abuse and heroin as was the case in 2002. In the St. Louis region, deaths have increased by 3 times since 2007. I'm told many fire departments around the country that include first responders are responding to more heroin overdoses than they are fires. In Chicago, at one moment last year, there were 74 overdoses in a 72-hour period of time. In Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 2014, more people died of heroin overdoses than car wrecks. And so this is an epidemic. The hearing that Senator Cornyn was talking about this morning, we need to look for new ways to do this, but we also need to realize that the impact goes right down to our veterans. You know, many of our veterans, from both the attacks that they become victims of and training accidents that they're part of, have serious injuries. They often wind up with a real problem at the end of the pain medicine they're given, and either have real problems because of trying to stay on that pain medicine longer than they should, or transition from pain medicine to heroin. We have a great obligation there, but this is something we should, and hopefully the Congress and the country will do something about.
Just one postscript on the heroin issue. Last year in Kentucky, we lost more people to overdoses than we did in car wrecks. Be happy to take up questions. Yep.
Plan on passing some kind of legislation to deal with the opioid problem by the end of the year? Is this something that you have?
Yeah, we're anxious to see what the Judiciary Committee produces. As Senator Cornyn pointed out, they, along with Senator Portman and Senator Ayotte, have been deeply involved in this. We're trying to craft something that we think makes a difference, but work it through the regular order process and move to it soon.
Do you think you can finish that by the end of the year?
We certainly hope so, yeah.
You stood at this podium numerous times in your colleagues over the past 6 months and talked about your concerns about Planned Parenthood based on the videos that were released last week. You've seen now this week that the producers of those videos have been indicted on charges. Several states have opened investigations into Planned Parenthood, not found any criminal wrongdoing. Do you have any regrets at this point about relying on those videos and those activists to level these charges against Planned Parenthood?
No. Yeah. I can't hear you.
Democrats sent a letter today on Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Do you think the Senate should
Yeah, I think the Puerto Rico issue is something a lot of us are concerned about. There's a lot of discussion about what to do. And as long as it doesn't involve the use of federal tax dollars, I think it is something we ought to try to figure out some way forward on. Exactly what the way forward is at this point, I'm not sure. But we certainly agree that it's a big problem, and we need to see what role, if any, we should play in it.
Peter McConnell, do you agree with Donald Trump's decision to not participate in tomorrow's Republican debate?
Yeah, I'm not going to start talking about the presidential campaign. There'd be no place to end the discussion. Anybody else?
Wrapping up that a little bit, though, there's been some talk about, how a GOP Congress could work with President Trump hypothetically. Would that be the kind of thing that could he lead a conservative party, or would you come more?
Yeah, good try, but I admire your effort to reframe the question. Look, I don't think there's any particular role for any of us unless we choose to make individual endorsements in all of this. We're anxious to have a Republican president, but not at all sure who that's going to be yet. Thanks a lot.